I want to talk about a little prayer that one of the prophets wrote, and by analogy, I don't want it to apply to the prophet, but I want it to apply to you as a pastor and pastors in general. And those of you who have your Bibles, it is our custom to stand when you read, and if you don't mind, if you would stand. Very, very familiar biblical story from the Old Testament. And because everybody knows the story, I can just lift out a few verses and share those verses because you have heard the story so many times before. The book of 1 Kings, chapter 18, verse 36. As many times as I've preached this, and as many times as I've read this, I overlooked this little prayer. And Pastor Steve and Pastor Hamilton and all the other ministers up here now, I've done this long enough, I've lived long enough, and I've made some mistakes, and I've done some things all right. It is all kind of boiled down to this is really all I want out of life now. And it's amazed me that I've made this circle to, it's this important that if God grants me this, I've had a good life. And I want to share this with you because I think it's applicable to not only just ministers, but it's applicable to all. Now, I don't know what translation you're reading from. This is the Holman Bible. So, at the time, verse 36, at the time for offering in the evening sacrifice, Elijah the prophet approached the altar and said, Yahweh, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. And there's a whole deal in there. He didn't say Jacob, he said Israel, but we're not going to deal with that. Today, let it be known that you are God in Israel. And this is the part that really got me. And that I am your servant. And that at your word, I have done all of these things. Answer me, Lord. Answer me so that this people will know that you, Yahweh, are God, and that you have turned their hearts back to me. And then Yahweh's fire fell and consumed the burnt offering, the wood, the stones, the dust, and it licked up the water that was in the trenches. When all the people saw it, they fell down and said, Yahweh, he is God. Yes. Yahweh, he is God. I want to take a minute and talk on the subject. Pretending versus power. To make sure I homiletically and exegetically reach into this text, help you to correctly understand it, I must give you a background. I don't want you to think I'm off topic, but I must give you a background of what was going on. The background to this text now is there had been a famine in the land for 3.5 years. Then within that 3.5 years, it had been another year. It had been another 6 months minus 3.5 would be 3 years that King Ahab had been searching for Elijah. So, famine 3.5, the famine had gotten bad. The king got upset with Elijah, and he was looking for Elijah. And after 3 years, Obadiah, who was the king's #1 servant, but also who was a man who feared God. Because the famine was so great, the king took one group one way, looking for grass, and Obadiah took one group another way, hoping that they could find water and grass to sustain the animals. And in Obadiah's journey, he ran into Elijah. And when he ran into Elijah, Obadiah walked up on him, and I wish people today, Pastor Steve, had this kind of respect for pastors. Obadiah saw the man of God, and when he saw him, he dropped to his knees on prayer, saying, Elijah, the man of God, don't you know Ahab is looking for you? And Elijah said, I'm looking for you because I want you to tell Ahab where I am. Obadiah said, wait a minute now. Wait a minute, Elijah. You see, if I go tell Ahab and I can't find you when I get back, then Ahab is going to kill me because he had been looking for you for 3 years now because they upset with you and your preaching. They upset with you and your prophesying because one group says one thing but you saying another, and they're preaching prosperity and you talking famine, and famine is going on, and the king is mad and the queen is mad, and if I take this message and you are not here when I get back, they're going to kill me. He said, don't worry about it. He said, I promise you, I'm going to be here today. He said, but God has sent me to Ahab today. So Obadiah left, just give you the background. Found Ahab, brought Ahab and Elijah together. Now, I wish I could tell you where they brought them together at. But the Bible does not tell me, and it's not necessarily important where they came together at. What is important is that they got together. And what is more important than the fact that they got together, when they got together, Ahab got a message from Elijah. Elijah told Ahab, say, Ahab, you the problem. You the problem. And I am concerned today, Pastor Steve, that we don't have that kind of preaching no more. Everybody's always trying to tiptoe through the tulips. You keep from hurting somebody's feelings. They love them enough not to hurt their feelings, but they don't love them enough to direct them away from hell. It amazes me how we show love. If you see me on the track and a train coming, please tell me to get off the track. Don't leave me on the track. And I'm fearful today that a lot of our ministers are leaving folk on the track. The train is coming, the horn is being sound, but they're leaving them on the track because they don't want to hurt their feelings. But I'd much rather hurt their feelings and get them off the track than to leave them on the track and let the train run over them. He said, Ahab, you the king. And let me tell you something. For all you high and mighty folk in the church who really got poverty mindset but a kingly attitude. Who in your own mind you are kings of the church. I want you to know the truth will find you wherever you are. And the truth will deal with you wherever you are. I don't care how much power or authority you think you have, you can be the king, all right, but when the King of Kings shows up, there is no power greater than God's power. The power that we receive is only delegated from the power that God has given us. So you better be careful when you are outside of the source of your power. Ahab said, I'm tired. Listen to this preacher. I'm tired of this now. This thing has been going on now for 3 years. And what we're going to do, we're going to put an end to this. Y'all, and we are in a season now where God is getting ready to put an end to a bunch of this church foolishness. You can sense it, you can sense it in the air. You can feel it in the atmosphere. God is saying, I'm getting ready to come back, and now the real church is going to have to stand up because I'm getting tired of the foolishness, and now I'm about to separate the wheat from the tare. Now, I know it's hard for us to distinguish between wheat and tare because they're looking like, but God said, I know the difference. God said, I know the difference between wheat and tare. And you can sit up in here and look as good as you want. You can act like all that, but God knows your heart, and God knows the heart of a tare versus the heart of wheat. And he told Samuel, said, man looks at the outside, but God looks at the heart. God said, I see what nobody else can see in your life. And the prophet said, look, we're going to put an end to this thing today. He said, what I want you to do is go get the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of the grove. And I want them to meet me on my comment. Boy, I want y'all to know, when I took the first look, I didn't like the odds. When I looked with my natural eyes, it was 850. They won. But after I sat back and looked at my spiritual eyes, I felt sorry for the 850. Because the one wasn't by himself. The one who we thought was by himself had God on his side. And anytime you got God on your side, you got the advantage. Anytime you got God on your side, even before you fight, you have won the war. So I felt sorry for the 850, and really, if you read this text close, 400 had enough sense not to show up. It's in your book. It's in your book. But the 450 prophets of Baal decided that they would show up, and Elijah said, well, I'm going back to my text. Elijah said, well, here's what we'll do. Here's what we do. I want y'all to get 2 bulls. I'm going to have one, and y'all have another. All right. And we're going to offer a sacrifice today. Yes. And when we offer the sacrifice today, whichever God answer by fire, we want everybody to agree that that is God. Now, he didn't tell them their God was the answer. He just said, whichever God. And he looked at the people and said, now, does this sound good to you? The God that answers by fire. Would you agree with me that that is God? And the people agreed that the God that answers by He is God. And Elijah said, look, I tell you what, just so I don't want you to feel left out, I'm going to let you go first. All right. I like that. That is the setup. He said, I'm going to let you, I just got to give you the background. He said, I'll let you go first. So they got their bull and they started dressing him. They started shouting all around the altar, calling Baal. 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 If y'all allow me to use my mind imagination, they started early in the morning, and now it was about 12 o'clock. Baal hadn't said nothing. He said, Baal. If you'll let me use my mind, I can see Elijah now off under a tree shade, fanning with a palm leaf, saying, well, maybe your God is asleep. He said, maybe your God is on vacation, or maybe he is just dead. So he can't hear you, but go on and call him. I'm going to go back to sleep. Just a little bit longer, and if you read the text, they started taking knives and cutting themselves and crying, Baal, Baal, Baal. But Baal didn't answer. If you'll allow me to use my mind imagination, because I don't want to incorrectly give you the time, but doing my mind imagination, if you'll allow, maybe sometime about 4 o'clock, just before it started turning towards the evening, he said, I've given you all day now. I've given you all day. You've had it long enough to call on your God. How about giving me a minute to call on my God? So they stood aside, and Elijah rebuilt the altar. Lord, I wish I had some time. And I want you to know we are in a season now, church, where we're rebuilding the altar of our hearts, and we're building the altar of our life, where we can put our sins on the altar, where the blood can cleanse it, where there is a sacrifice for our life. The altars are being rebuilt, and the altar was rebuilt at the cross, because when they sacrificed, Jesus went on the altar. Elijah started building the altar up. Didn't read any further, don't have a lot of proof, but I saw no place where that altar was torn down after it was built up. And I think that's an example of once Jesus died, it was a fixed altar. But here we are. Don't Johnson close it now. Here we are. Elijah saying, let me think about this. I like this preacher. He said, let me think about this because I don't want them to think this is no trick. I don't want them to think this is no game, because my God is a real God. Y'all excuse me, I don't mean to make nobody mad, but some of y'all folks who run into the root doctor and all them people. Some of y'all who need the hand and the foot, I want you to know that ain't a real God. If you would take that money you give to them and put it in the tithe basket, you'd probably have a lot bigger return. You probably have a lot bigger return than you respect what you get. But here it is now. He said, I want them to believe that this is God. So after he rebuilt the altar, all right, the Bible says, I need for you to go get me some water. And while you're getting the water, I'm going to dig me some trenches. And he took the water and he poured the water over the sacrifice. and the water went down off of the altar into the trenches, and he poured water until the sacrifice was soaked, until the trenches were filled. And now back to my text. Back to verse 36. And it was time for the offering. In the evening. Elijah, the preacher, approached the altar. And before I close it, I think I better tell you why I say pretense versus power. Because, you know, the 450 prophets of Baal had been pretending a long time. They have power. And I see so many folk in the church today pretending that they got God's power. And they really don't have God's power because they don't have God. I'm trying to understand how you think you can get God's power without having God. You're not living like He wants you to live. Not doing like He wants you to do. Not acting like He tell you to act. But yet, you want God's power. Now you fool some folk because you can run around the altar and speak in tongues. Or you dress in the right clothes and you got long sleeves and the bonnets and all of that, and you can talk the right talk and you can do all of that stuff, and you've been fooling people all your life, but you never had the power of God in your life. But there ain't never been no power in no dress. There ain't never been no power in no hat. The power was in the person that wore the dress and the hat. And I don't care how short your dress, if you got Jesus. And I don't care how long your dress, if you don't have Jesus. You don't have a power, but we've been around here pretending. We've been around here pretending, and in our pretending, we get mad because the preacher said, God said. We get mad when the pastor said, God said, we ought to do this, because you saying it don't make no sense to us. I want you to know God's ways are higher than your ways. God's thoughts are different than your thoughts. God doesn't have to make sense to you. Somebody say, why doesn't God have to make sense to me? I wasn't there when He said, let there be light, and there was light. I wasn't there when He divided the starry canopy, put the little light in the night and the big light in the day. I wasn't there. I wasn't there when He created the animals in the mountain. I wasn't there. I wasn't there when the Trinity got together and decided, let us make man in our own image, in our own likeness. I wasn't there. I was only a thought in the mind. I was only a thought in the mind of God. I had no say-so in what went on there. So why do you think you got to have some say-so about what's going on now? Don't you think you need to connect to the source first? Because if you connect to the source, then God will direct you where you need to go. Most of the time when the pastor is connected to God and said, the Lord said, you got folks say, well, my common sense tells me this is not what we should do. And the pastor's saying, yeah, I know what your common sense said, but last night the Lord told me. But then they come back and say, well, the Lord didn't tell me, and what we should rightly respond is, you are not in a position for the Lord to tell you. It is not your place nor your job for the Lord to skip me and tell you. Elijah said, I am God's representative for Israel right now. God is not going to tell you before he tells me. And I'm telling you that God, I'm telling you that the Lord has showed me. And I believe that Elijah had a moment of indecision. And he did what everybody and every pastor ought to do when you have a moment of indecision. I'm not ashamed to tell you, yes, I've had some moments of indecision. It's not a crime to be indecisive, but the crime is when I'm indecisive not to know who to go to get my answer. But I've learned because of my indecision who to go to, who already knows what I need to know. So when I'm indecisive, I would do like Elijah did. Elijah had a little prayer. He had a little prayer in the midst of his circumstances. I believe that Elijah looked around and had a minute to reminisce. He said, Lord, you know, this is going to be the final battle. And for a moment, he was saying, God, what if you don't show up? What kind of condition would I be in? But then faith stepped in and said, wait a minute. He showed up when you were in the cave as a still small voice. He showed up while you were by the brook when he sent a raven to bring you bread and meat in the morning, to bring you bread and meat in the evening, and you drink water until the brook dried up. Once the brook dried up, you remember he told you to go down to Zarephath. That there was a woman at Zarephath that did not have bread for herself, but if you go to Zarephath, there's a woman, I want you to tell her to take the little bread and make you a cake, and not only will you eat, but she will eat until the famine is over. Is the Lord all right? I see Elijah now. Elijah said, yeah, man, thank you for getting me back on track. If the Lord has done it for me one time, then I believe he'll do it for me again. Is the Lord all right? I see Elijah as he got his courage. Is the Lord all right? Elijah said, well, the Lord has brought me through, and I'm going to trust him just a little while longer. Is the Lord all right? The Bible says that Elijah said, well, God, there is two things that I really need for you to do for me. Is the Lord all right? I've been preaching for a long time. I just need you to do two things for me. Is the Lord all right? Prove that you still God in Israel. Is the Lord all right? And prove that I'm still your servant. Is the Lord all right? Yes. Yes. Reverend Steve, I'm at a place now. I just want him to let him know he's still God in Estelle. He's still God in Fairfax. He's still God in Buford. Is the Lord all right? I want him to know. I want him to tell them not only is he God, but I'm his man. I'm his man. I'm his man. I'm his man. Yeah. Yeah. Is the Lord all right? I see Elijah now. I see Elijah now. Got out on the knees. Everybody laughing, saying all by himself. But Elijah got out and said, fine. Fine. Didn't say a lot of words. Didn't do a bunch of talking. Raised his hand. Fire. Fire. Is the Lord all right? Fire. the altar. Fire! Fire! The people started crying, Elijah's gone! Elijah's gone! Elijah's gone! Is the God that answers by fire? See, Elijah is not pretending. He's the real thing. He got power. He's the right God. Well, I got to go. I wish that was the end of the story. And the Lord, all right. But that's not the end of the story. Elijah said, there's one more thing that I got to do to show them that I got power and I'm not pretending. And the Lord, all right, Elijah told the people that kept the 454 prophets of Baal, took them down to the river, cut their heads off so that the word or the false gospel would have to stop. But then the Bible says that Elijah went to the mountain near the top of Mount Carmel. He sat down. The Bible said he put his head. The Bible said he put his head. The Bible said he put his head in the laps of his shoulder and started crying. A few minutes ago he cried fire, but now he's saying rain, 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 rain on me. I've been in trouble. Rain on me. I've been through. Rain on me. We've been in famine. And the Lord, all right. And the Lord, all right. It's time to leave it now. He's sitting down. Elijah told his servant, he told his servant Tony, Elijah told his servant, say, I want you to look, I need for you to look. Do you see a cloud coming from the east? And the Lord, all right. And the Bible said he prayed about 6 times, but there was no cloud coming from the east. But on the 7th time, when he cried out rain, the servant said, I see a cloud about the size of a hand coming from the east. And the Lord, all right, rain came, thunder came, lightning came, and the Lord, all right, things got so good until Elijah. The Lord said, Elijah, I want you to know you my man. The King Ahab has gone on back down to Samaria, and I need you to catch him and tell him, didn't I tell you that God said he would do it? And if God said he would do it, he certainly will do it. Do I have anybody in good hope tonight? Know that if God said he'll do it, he'll do it for you. Do I have anybody that thought it was over, that God said he'd do it, he'll do it for you? And the Lord, all right, I see Elijah now saying, well, God, how am I going to catch him? He's already on the chariot. He's already going to Samaria. And the Lord, all right, I hear God say, if I got enough power to send the fire, I got enough power to send the rain, I'll give you enough power so you can run the chariot down. And the Lord, all right, I'm going to my seat, but I got enough power. I believe I'll just run on and see what the end's going to be. I don't know what tomorrow's going to be, but I'm going to run on. Can I just get 3 people that don't mind running on just to raise their hand? If I can get 3 people that don't mind running on just to raise their hand. Can I get 3 people that I've been through the storm, I've been through the rain, I've had my struggles, I've had my ups, I've had my downs, I have been talked about, I have been lied on, I have been mistreated, but I'm gonna run on, I'm gonna run on, I'm gonna be. Don't know what tomorrow's gonna bring, but I'ma trust God. Will you trust God with me today? I don't know what's gonna happen when I leave here. I don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow, but I'm just gonna hold on. If I can just get you to reach out to God, I'm just gonna hold on. Or whatever in front of me, if you just be with me, if you just be my salt, I'm not pretending. I want your power. If you just give me your power, just give me your power. If you just give me your power, your power, your power. Y'all excuse me now. The wasn't for y'all. That was for me. Sometimes when I look back over my life and see what the Lord has brought me through, and the Lord has brought me out, sometimes I don't know what to say, so I just say, ooh. Nobody knows about it like I know about it. Nobody can handle it like I can handle it. You wasn't there. You wasn't there when I thought it was all over. You wasn't there when I should have been taken out. You wasn't there. You wasn't there when the Lord gave me grace. You wasn't there when the Lord gave me mercy. So I can't let you stop my praise. Can't let you stop my praise. I owe him, I owe him, I owe him, I owe him.